The wind blew cold that night, an unsettling murmur seeping through the twisted trees of the old Blackwood cemetery. For Leo, Marco, and Sophia, it was the perfect setting. With cameras in hand, they sought to capture something paranormal, something that would give them the adrenaline rush they craved, and, of course, thousands of views on their YouTube channel. The wrought iron gate, rusty and ajar, creaked like a lament as they pushed it open. "This is going to be epic," Marco whispered, his eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The first few minutes were almost disappointing. The place was silent, a heavy, ancient silence. All they could hear was the crunch of dry leaves under their feet and the distant hum of the city they had left behind. They walked through the first rows of tombstones, worn by time, with names and dates that had almost completely faded. The light from their flashlights danced over the stone, creating elongated shadows that played with their imagination. Everything seemed too quiet, too normal for a place with so many legends behind it. It was Sophia who noticed it first. She stopped dead in her tracks, her flashlight fixed on a section of the cemetery. "Guys, do you see that?" she asked with a trembling voice. Leo and Marco approached. In front of them, several graves seemed to have been disturbed. The earth was dug up, piled on the sides of the holes as if something had burrowed its way out from inside. These weren't old, forgotten graves. The earth looked fresh, damp. A shiver ran down Leo's spine. There were no animal tracks, no tool marks, just those strangely arranged mounds of earth. "Probably vandals," Marco said, trying to sound convincing, though his voice betrayed his own unease. But the explanation didn't fit. What kind of vandals would bother to dig from the inside out? As they debated, a subtle sound reached their ears. At first, they thought it was the wind, but it grew clearer, closer. A whisper, a raspy voice, barely audible, that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It repeated the same phrase over and over, an icy echo in the stillness of the night. "I'm not dead." They froze. They looked at each other, eyes wide, searching for a logical explanation that didn't exist. "Did you hear that?" Sophia murmured, clinging to Leo's arm. The whisper continued, a macabre litany that crept under their skin. They decided to move on, perhaps out of foolishness, perhaps out of the denial that precedes panic. They thought that if they found the source, the mystery would be solved. But with every step they took, the whisper seemed to envelop them more, becoming more insistent. "I'm not dead." It was then that Leo tripped over something. He fell to his knees, his flashlight rolling across the ground. When he recovered it and pointed it at the object, his heart stopped. It wasn't a root or a stone, it was a tombstone. But it wasn't like the others. It was impeccably clean, as if it had been placed that very afternoon. The black marble gleamed under the light, without a speck of dust, and engraved on it, in crisp golden letters, was his full name, Leonardo Garcia. Below it, a date. The date of that very night. Leo's scream broke the silence. Sophia and Marco rushed to his side. Seeing the tombstone, the color drained from their faces. "This is a joke. "It has to be a joke," Marco stammered, but no one was laughing. Panic, a cold and paralyzing monster, finally trapped them. They turned and ran. They ran without looking back, with the sole objective of reaching the exit, of returning to the world of the living. The whisper now seemed like a mockery, louder, clearer, "I'm not dead." They reached the Rottian gate they had entered through, but their hopes were shattered. It was closed. Closed with a new, gleaming padlock that definitely wasn't there before. They pulled at the bars, screamed for help, but their voices were lost in the vastness of the cemetery. They were trapped. Turning back, the horror intensified. Behind them, the graves that had only had disturbed earth before were now open. Black, deep holes yawned towards the night sky, like hungry mouths waiting to be fed. Panic turned into pure terror. They ran aimlessly, stumbling among the tombstones, while the whisper transformed into multiple voices. An otherworldly chorus repeating the same phrase from the depths of the earth. Suddenly, Sophia screamed. She had fallen behind. Leo and Marco turned just in time to see her fall. But she didn't trip. From the muddy ground next to an open grave, hands emerged. Pale, bony hands covered in earth. They clutched her ankles with inhuman strength. Sophia struggled, screamed, clawed at the earth, but it was useless. The hands slowly dragged her into the dark hole. "Help me," she pleaded, her voice choked with terror. Leo and Marco tried to pull her, but the hands wouldn't give way. It was like fighting the earth itself. Little by little, Sophia was swallowed by the darkness, her last scream muffled by the sound of the earth closing over her. She disappeared beneath the surface, and the ground was as smooth as if she had never been there. Leo and Marco were paralyzed, the echo of Sophia's screams still ringing in their ears. Shock gave way to a desperate race for survival. They ran in opposite directions, each on their own. Leo didn't know where he was going. He just knew he had to move. The chorus of whispers was now a deafening roar in his head. "I'm not dead." He stumbled and fell again, this time next to another open grave. The stench of damp earth and decomposition churned his stomach. And at that instant, in the midst of absolute terror, the truth hit him with the force of a sledgehammer. The tombstone with his name, the open graves, the whisper, everything clicked in his mind in a horrible, lucid way. Not everyone buried in that cemetery was dead. Some weren't. Some were just waiting for someone, an unsuspecting person, a thrill seeker, to come and take their place. It was an exchange. One soul for another. A fresh body for one that had waited patiently in the darkness. He looked at the tombstone with his name engraved on it. The date. That night. His night. He understood that the whisper was not a threat. It was a promise. "I'm not dead." It was the voice of the person lying in the grave destined for him. The person who had patiently waited for their replacement. And that night, he was next. Terror turned into icy resignation. He heard a movement in the grave next to him. A sound of earth being disturbed. Slowly, he looked up and saw hands, identical to those that had taken Sophia, emerging from the edge of the hole, reaching for him. The chorus of voices joined in a final, triumphant whisper, "I'm not dead." Thank you for listening to this story. If you like horror stories, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos. See you in the next nightmare.